Okay, today we are going to be concluding some Ration and Aleph. These are just basically a bunch of miscellaneous ideas that we didn't quote yet. This is from the Piskei Teshuvos. Okay, if you have someone who isn't Jewish doing work for you Erev Shabbos, 100% that's permissible. It just has to be pointed out. We're talking about how close could we work to Shabbos. Over here, there's something interesting that's brought down over here. Nowadays we were discussing how could it be that people get a haircut before Shabbos, right? So the Mishnah Brura, let's just remind ourselves of what we learned at the end of Os Zion, says that you have people who are going to call you to remind you to go to shul, and therefore it's not a problem. So nowadays we don't really have this anymore, that people remind us to go to shul to call us. However, what we do have is this idea over here. Even though we don't have people that officially call us and to remind us to go to shul, getting a haircut is okay. Why? Because nowadays getting haircuts is very simple. It doesn't take a lot of time. It takes a few moments, and there's no concern that maybe the scissors or the shavers are going to break. There's not going to be any replacements. And therefore, that's why it's fine, because it's not a time-consuming activity. Seems like in the past it was longer. However, according to many Gedolei HaPoskim and Mekubalim, these words of the Arizal, not to get a haircut after midday, has nothing to do with mincha. It has to do with it's a time when the dinim, strict judgment, is very strong, and therefore you have to be careful. And someone who fears heaven should be stringent upon themselves as possible as it is. But this is the basic idea. It's quicker. This is another added
So we're
logic that we could add in. What?
going on what we've said previously,
Yeah.
that would really mean that, someone should get their haircut Thursday night, right? Because if you're working on Friday and you leave work at Sos or whatever, then
Yeah.
they don't give you too much time.
The question is at night getting a haircut okay? Some Mikubalim don't like cutting hair at night.
Because I thought
Din and
din is
everything.
more at nighttime. You
Correct.
have that whole thing with slichas and learning, chumash, and all
Correct.
those things.
Correct.
So I was saying there's din by, is it just Dam Erev Shabbos mincha or it's mincha all week long?
I'm not sure.
No,
I'm not
I
sure.
walked in, I walked
He
in a lot
talks
of
about
times.
this in Hilchos Mincha and Siman Reish Lamed Beis.
Ooh.
What'd you say, David?
No, I walked in. A lot of times I end up getting my haircut on Sunday morning because it's the only time I can go, and it's convenient. And I'm saying it's like the only time that the barber I use is right next to where I dive, and he works out Sunday mornings. Like he's only open till 7, and
Honestly, this whole haircut thing, if like for me, I don't have a lot of hair in the front and everything, like it's not that hard to either number one, cut your own hair or just have your wife do it for you.
they had this thing.
Unless you're getting a fancy thing with the bangs and the different styles and everything, if you're just getting like a two or a three all around, like it's not rocket science. It's time consuming. You go to the barber, might have been talking about that it costs $25 or whatever the price is nowadays.
The cleanup.
Yeah, the cleanup's not that bad. So, you do it in a shower and a bathtub, and then you bend down with a paper towel and you put it all together. That's all. Not a big deal. We learned somewhere, I think in Siman Reish Samach, about you shouldn't get a haircut like outside. Forgot
Oh,
exactly.
really?
Yeah, we learned that. I remember that. I remember that because we used to do
Shouldn't
it
get a
outside
haircut.
because then there's no cleanup. The hair just blows away in the wind. It's biodegradable, I think it's called. You know, so I think it also keeps away certain bugs and animals that don't like it.
Wait, you should or you
I'll take that
shouldn't?
outside.
Should not outside.
Should not. Yeah, should not. It was brought
But
down.
then why do we tell you it just blows away? We shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah, no, it was. I don't know. I think for Kabbalistic reasons, you have to go back to some Reish Samach that we did. Okay, let's do something else over here. There's one Be'er Halacha which is completely tangential from the topics that we've been learning, and we didn't do this Be'er Halacha yet. And in fact, Chafetz Chaim himself acknowledges that this is a massive tangent. And this is talking about, he says, we're talking about, haircuts and everything. Agav da'irinon be'inyan tispeiris. Since we're talking about haircuts, ra'isi lahaskir inyan echad masha eze mehamon nachshalan baba v'nasein rabim. I want to mention something over here, that which a lot of people, the general crowds of people, stumble with our great sins. This is talking about people who cut their hair in places where you're not supposed to cut it. The truth of the matter is these halachas, they come up in your day. It's its own simon. It's its own sugya. It comes up towards the end of Makos. And you have to be careful. I just want to point something out before we even start this Be'er Halacha. When Jews are getting haircuts, they're like bald, you could call it, but they have hair on the side, and they just cut everything off to be totally bald. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do it.
What do you mean? You can't shave, you can't
A total
shave
ball.
your head
You can't completely cut all of your hair on the side and everything
on the
like
side. Oh, on the side. I think you
yeah. No, these people
No.
bald like the whole like they have no hair, the whole hair, right? So
Yeah.
they cut.
I mean by their temple. I
The
mean by you're
sides.
talking about that you can't
You can't cleave it. All right.
by
Let's
your
go through
temple.
the Be'er Halacha word for word, and then we're gonna
You said
go
we
into
can
this
do
more.
that?
That's right. Let's go through the Be'er Halacha word for word, and then we're gonna go a little deeper on this unique topic that the Be'er Halacha is tangenting on over here. This is a negative commandment. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs. You're not allowed to cut hair certain places. Some say it's more of a halachic issue if you're cutting places on your head that you're not supposed to, more than cutting your beard in a way that you're not allowed to cut it. Or your hair on the side that you're supposed to have by your ear. B'shir ha'pe'ahum mikuneged se'ar, sha'al padachtoi va'ad lamata min ha'oizen makom shel achia tachton yotzim es parichem. This amount is from the forehead until down below from the ear, the place where the lower jaw comes out and separates over there, hence that bone that became a popular bone. B'chol roichiv ha'sa'aros, this is actually a little bit lower than the bone. This is like more towards like right under your ear.
Over here.
This is
or
like
over here?
more towards right under your ear, actually, because the place where your jaw is like coming. We're gonna see pictures. I just want to go through the Be'er Halacha first. Don't touch that to remove it over there. As this is explained in your day in Siman Kuf Pei Aleph, Ayin Sham. Very important. The person who's getting the haircut and who's giving the haircut both violate this halacha if they would do this. Due to our great sins and iniquities, we find that people, unfortunately, they're cutting these areas. Ad samach lebesaran mamish until it's right near their skin. Ve'in meshayir and klal v'yish was a chashash daraisa. They don't leave anything, and there's a concern from the Torah over here. V'ayeh lehem l'shayir al kol panim ksas min ksas. They should at least leave something. U'biyoyis mizeh yeshma b'chum she'sapar mesapir roishuhu magalech los haseir eitel azan. You got to be careful. Barbers are cutting by the ear. Danger zone. You got to be careful. Umachma shemutin choshosh shepeas ros nikra rak masha anu kordin peya. Lokain hu kasher chasavnu v'hulav gamor da'arais l'divrei hakom v'gam za'alav hu afilu la'anika f'alkein afilu misapru v'in v'yehudi ilish l'yisrael l'azir shliga abaka b'makom ahu gam mirchos mutlahav zechud misap shlogo yichamacha b'hu yimid v'ordin shmalo. You have to foresee in advance that there's going to be a potential issue, and you have to specify and tell the barber before he does anything, look, you're not allowed to cut this area, you're not allowed to. Furthermore, if you were getting your hair cut in a bathroom or a bathhouse where you're not allowed to speak words of Torah, and someone you see is about to cut a place that's prohibited, you could directly tell them, you can't do that. if you can't allude to him, hint to him, you could just directly tell him, you can't do that over there. Why? Because the halacha is lafushim isur. If it's going to prevent you from doing something prohibited, you're allowed to say that in the bathroom. The truth is that's a simon of itself. K'mavur el, as it's explained earlier in simin pei dalid or pei hey, right? In order to separate someone from a prohibition, it's permissible even in the bathroom or bathhouse to tell them not to do it. So this is a very important be'er halacha. I just want to share some pictures on this that are in the Oz V'Hadam Mishnah over here. So
Rabbi.
if you look at these be'er halacha, if you look at, sorry, some of these pictures over here, all right, just zooming in tremendously over here. So it says over here in picture one, this is where it begins. I'll show you some of the good pictures over here. These are all examples of locations where you can't cut. You see where that arrow is? You don't want to do that. You don't want to cut that area, right? You can't do that. That's obvious. So this is picture Gimel is according to some opinions. You should go all the way down. I feel like a lot of people don't do that. And I'm pretty sure hay is also a problem to do. Hay is also a problem. Some say it's a little bit higher. So these are, I think, Gimel and Dalid are very crucial pictures over here. Right, there's a whole discussion where exactly that bone is. Is it you go all the way down to the earlobe, like you see over there, or you go like a little higher on the bone? But you have to be careful. So you just what?
I'm saying like
It's not the bone that you feel that's harder. There's like another bone.
another bone below that.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So
Wait, is there anything wrong with Gimel?
no, definitely not. Just according to everyone, definitely not. So you have to be careful with that. There was just one more picture that they were showing over here. Yeah.
Rabbi Forst has his
Yeah, it's not his, it's someone else. But yeah, I have
his
pictures
name's
over there
on
also.
the
You have to be careful. I just want to share over here.
bottom, but
I'm just going to share a picture
that's everywhere.
above the ear,
That's
above the ear over here. So you have to be careful also. A lot of times the barbers they try to, like lahavdil when they're edging on grass and they're making it a sharp cut. So they'll try to push it back a little bit to make it look more defined and sharp. You have to be careful with the zone also, right? Picture ches over
Ooh,
here.
look at that.
Picture ches. I just want to find the letter that this is going on. I see tes. You see ches down here? Ches. Odiyesh ladun mehichan moidin hakav beside oizen ima makom achal gavo beyosin shal oizen. Right. So some say this is like the most lenient opinion. You can't get more lenient than this. Some say this is you could cut all of this. So your bone's like over there. So you have different.
Shirish.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
There's a
basically
picture.
what you were saying. So you have different opinions. At the end of the day, you don't want to play with fire over here. All right. So you have to be careful. We're talking about potential Torah prohibitions. For me, obviously, it's not applicable anymore. But before I grew up my beard, before I was married, I usually always cut right over there on the bottom just to cover all opinions. It's not a big deal. It's not.
How many are you saying?
Yeah, like I would like leave it till over here.
Got it.
Yeah. Look, it's not gonna make or break anything. You just have nothing to lose. It's not gonna change your appearance in a crazy way. It's like everyone knows you have to do that, and you have to be careful. You see a lot of times barbers, they're cutting too high, they're cutting around the ear. You hear horror stories. Once they cut it, it's too late.
So that's also us or with a scissor, or it's just the razor?
Okay. That's a whole discussion, scissors or razors. A scissor, if you're going too close, if you're cutting really anything lower than a two, I'm pretty sure it's a two. That's what it's assumed to say. It's considered as if almost the whole thing's off, anyways. So you have to, these thin scissors you can get very low, so you have to be careful nowadays. Anyways, this is just all of the tidbits that I wanted to add. I looked at the dare sheet, there's nothing that we need to go into more. These are basically all the tidbits for the Simon. We did with Harfinish's Chuvas, we went through everything. So now we're gonna do a review, okay? Fine.